you, Grace. I want to thank you for being with us. Bombshell tonight. A beautiful girl just graduates nursing school, then goes missing from the local Barnes & Noble's bookstore. We learn the very last phone call she makes before she vanishes into thin air was to her former boss, who we now know to be her married boyfriend. In the last hours, police execute multiple search warrants on married boyfriend's house and business.
There's a goal here.
Help us find her.
To get everybody to know her face.
Help us find Phuong.
This is just really odd.
Authorities investigating the disappearance of 25-year-old Phuong Lee have executed search warrants.
A bunch of feds, a bunch of suits, a bunch of suit and ties.
It's on the home and office of a man police reportedly say was romantically linked to the missing woman.
These guys were too quiet.
They are not telling us what they found.
Cops are keeping a lot of things close to the vest.
Sources say investigators began looking at Tuck Nguyen, Phuong's former boss, after his phone number.
Cell phone record.
Cell phone record.
Who did she call?
Nguyen's number was the last one showing on her cell phone.
Did she say anything about leaving the area, running away?
No, nothing at all.
Police will not confirm what was taken, but sources say computers were seized from both locations.
If somebody was doing something, I think she would have said something.
Phuong's family reportedly regarded Phuong's former boss as a brother.
I think something would have come out.
A man her relatives described as a family friend.
Well, I'm just hoping, the only hoping I have now is hopefully she's safe. There's something in my mind right now.
I want to point out that the married boyfriend is not a suspect. He is not a person of interest. According to everything I know right now, he has been cooperating with police. Straight out to Henry K. Lee, reporter with the San Francisco Chronicle, author of Presumed Dead, a true life murder mystery. Henry, everything I'm learning is getting worse and worse. Give me all the updates.
Well, they have searched Mr. Tuck Nguyen's home and business. He runs Postal Express in Suisun City, the same city where Phuong Lee lives. And of course, he is her former boss. Of course, she called him on Sunday. And what we don't know is, does he have any involvement in her disappearance?
Okay.
The family says no.
Henry K. Lee, a couple of questions. Quick, yes, no. If you don't know, fine. The police may not have released it yet. Number one, do you know how long they spoke on the telephone?
Not sure at all.
Okay. Do you know what they talked about other than he says she was angry, she had to hand out flyers for her sister's business? Anything else?
That's it. That's what they talked about.
Do you know where he was? Has his cell phone been pinged? For all I know, he was driving to the front of the Barnes & Nobles to pick her up. Where was he at the time of the phone call?
Well, he says that he was home on the day that she disappeared. It stands to reason, Nancy, that the cops would be looking at his cell phone records to jive it up with hers.
He says he was at home. Stacey Newman, our producer on the story, doesn't he say that video surveillance supports his alibi, that he was at home?
Yes, Nancy, he says he does have an alibi. Surveillance video from the surrounding neighborhood that he lives in, he says, will prove that he was at home that night and did not leave home.
Wait, so you're telling me he doesn't have a nanny cam or anything like that in his home, but he believes that surveillance video in his neighborhood? What surveillance video in his neighborhood?
He says there's video there that can show people coming and going from the neighborhood. He does live in a very nice, I would say somewhat upscale neighborhood in Fairfield, and he says video will prove he did not leave his home the day that Lee disappeared.
Mark Class, president and founder of Class Kids Foundation, what do you make of this?
Well, I think it's it's incredulous that this gentleman would be able to supply himself with that kind of an alibi, say that he knows that the videotape will prove that. It almost seems like he had something pre-prepared. But you know what? I'll tell you, law enforcement in Northern California has plenty of experience in searching for missing persons. So I don't think that there's any region in the country that a person could disappear in where they wouldn't have as much experience to draw from as Northern California.
Okay, Pat Brown, criminal profiler, author of The Profiler, My Life Hunting Serial Killers and Psychopaths. You're just who we need. You and Mark Class, between the two of you, certainly we can figure this thing out. Pat Brown, all right. Of course, all types of red flags are waving when you find out not only does she have a married boyfriend, he was a former boss. What? Did he fire her? Did she quit? Why is it a former boss? Now, also we learned that's the very last person that we know of that she spoke to before she vanishes into thin air. Weigh in.
Well, I'd say two things there. Romantic relationship at one point, and last person she called, those are absolute connections that they have to look at. And here's the other thing. That purse in the trunk bugs the heck out of me. I have gone into a bookstore before and put my purse in the trunk so I don't have to carry it around while I'm looking at books, but I roll up the windows, I lock the car. So the only reason, in my opinion, her purse would be in that trunk is because she left the bookstore and she saw somebody, they say, hey, come and sit and talk with me. So she jumped in the back of the car and sat in the car next to hers.
But
somebody put her purse in the trunk and dumped her car in the Barnes & Noble lot.
Well,
Only things I can think of.
This through, Pat, at first I thought maybe she met somebody in the parking lot and took off with them. But why would she leave everything behind? And even if she went into the Barnes & Nobles, why wouldn't she take her cell phone or her wallet with her?
Right, if she went in, yes, I agree with that, but if she came back out again and she was just going to sit in somebody's car and talk to them, sometimes you just open up your trunk and toss it in there so you can just get rid of it while you're sitting and talking because you're not, you have your eye on it, but you don't want it in your lap. That's one thing. Or I say, somebody dumped her car there, threw all her stuff in it, and drove that car to the lot and left it there because they knew she goes to Barnes & Noble and they think that's a place where she could get abducted out of. In other words, a staged crime scene.
You know, isn't it true, Henry K. Lee with the San Francisco Chronicle joining us there in San Francisco? Henry, didn't she often go to that Barnes & Noble's, the local bookstore, and study? She had just taken her nursing board. She was studying for more tests.
That's correct. Barnes & Noble, Nancy, was a familiar haunt for her, and as the brother has told reporters, it's very possible that a complete stranger may have realized what her daily routine was, which included the Barnes & Noble.
Wait, back it up. Mark Class, how often is it that someone Lee's age is abducted by a complete stranger?
Well, it certainly happened to my daughter. It happened to many of the kids.
I said Lee's age.
Oh, I don't know
24.
about that. I would think less often than more, but I don't think that we want to narrow this down to this one individual. At least not at this point. No.
You know me better than that. I think everybody's a suspect. I think I'm a suspect. I got to find out where I was that night. Listen, nobody is ruled out. But I'm just saying, let's look at statistics. Let's take an educated look at what happened. What about it, Pat? What are the stats?
Well, I mean, there are women who go missing out of parking lots. That's a popular place for serial killers to go and grab their people. But I don't understand why she would put her purse in the trunk if she was leaving the store. What purpose does it serve if she's going to get in the car and drive away? That doesn't really work with me. So I think it's not an abductor out of the lot.
The family told us today they regard Nguyen as a brother and don't believe he had anything to do with Phuong's disappearance. Her friends are simply fighting their fears.
That we'll never find her or find out what happened to her, that she won't come home.